Evening. I'm Spot On Weather meteorologist Matthew Euler. Welcome to my continuation video examining La Nina winters going back to the year 2010. All right, so we left off right here for my last video. We left off basically where at the moderate La Nina of the winter of 2020-21. And we'll cover the last three La Nina winters, which we just most recently had, actually, three in a row. And let's go ahead and examine some of the temperature and precip anomalies as well as the other teleconnections for these three La Nina winters that are in consecutive order here. So starting with moderate La Nina in 2020-21 winter season, here's your temperature anomalies showing in December of 2020 here on the left. Remember, the middle graphic represents the month of January on each of the slides. And then over here on the far right, this is February. So December of 2020 here on the far left, moderate La Nina, the winter of 2020-21, we saw well above normal temperatures across the Dakotas into Montana. We saw cooler than normal readings from the mid-Atlantic down toward Florida. I will say Florida was on the order of 4 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit below normal in December of 2020. So it was a chilly start to the winter down in Florida. This lighter blue here along the southeast coast and up to southeast Virginia is only about 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit below normal in this lighter blue shading extending back west towards Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. We also saw well above normal temperatures in December 2020 during the moderate La Nina. We're talking 5 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit above normal readings up in Maine. In the middle here, we examine January of 2021 temperature anomalies. We still see that same area well above normal that we saw in December. Not much change to the above normal temperatures across the Dakotas, parts of northwest Minnesota, and there is your eastern portions of Montana again. We're talking temperatures in this brown shading were running 10 to 12 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in January of 2021. We also continue the theme of well above normal temperatures in January of 21 across Maine, 7 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in Maine. We only saw a light little blue patch of slightly below normal readings across northeastern North Carolina. And then we also saw some slightly below normal readings across West Texas into New Mexico, Utah, as well as Arizona. Now on the right here, I'm showing February of 2021. Look at this change. Look at the change. December on the left, January 2021 in the middle, and then February of 21. Look at this dark, deep shade of purple here. This is showing temperature anomalies across the Midwest, down into Texas, up to Montana and parts of the western Dakotas, running well below normal. We're talking double digits below normal in degrees Fahrenheit here, 10 degrees plus below normal for the mean temperature, the average temperature for the month of February in 2021. I'm going to show you what happened in this month here shortly. Now, as far as precipitation in December here on the left, December of 2020, during that moderate La Nina, a lot of drier than normal areas, specifically those of you living in Arizona, into Nevada, into California, into parts of eastern Oregon and Washington State. Very dry across eastern Montana and the parts of the Dakotas where it was well above normal, as well as drier than normal across northern Iowa up through central and northern Wisconsin. We did see some slightly above normal precip from North Carolina on up the coast to Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, parts of Connecticut, as well as Massachusetts up to Maine. In January of 21, we saw still some slightly above normal precip generally from the Virginia, North Carolina border southward here along the coast of southeastern U.S., into the Carolinas, down through Georgia. But it was very much drier than normal across Florida in January of 2021, indicated by this darker brown shading here, specifically across central and southern Florida. Also was fairly dry along the Gulf Coast It was drier than normal in the upper Great Lakes area, Wisconsin, Minnesota, remaining above normal and very dry across the western Dakotas and Montana. And then it was also below normal as far as precip across parts of New Mexico. And then over here on the far right was February of 2021, very much well below normal as far as precip across Southern California, Southern Nevada, the western portions of Arizona, drier than normal along the Texas Gulf Coast, also across the northern and central portions of Texas, as well as Kansas, Missouri, well below normal in precip across the Dakotas, parts of Minnesota. And then it was well above normal, the rain again here, or I shouldn't say rain, the precip. February 2021, it was well above normal again here along the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic southward. Look at this shade of green indicating 200% of average precip in the darker green areas across southeastern Virginia, as well as the Carolinas. Let's look at the 500 millibar heights now for the moderate La Nina winter of 2020-21. December 2020 on the left. Remember that these reddish colors, the orangish colors, indicate above normal heights. And when you have above normal heights, it's typically associated with upper level ridges and drier and milder than normal conditions. So you see we have a lot of ridging in December of 2020 there across southeastern Canada, as well as on the European side of things, some ridging as well. Above normal heights basically across New England back to the Midwest. In January of 21 here in the middle, look at this anomalous area of higher than normal heights, and that's extending across Greenland up to the North Pole. So that is really interesting there, well above normal heights. Across the mid-latitudes here across the U.S., we had more of a west to east jet stream in January of 21. We did have anomalously higher than normal heights also to the northeast of the Hawaiian Islands across the northeast Pacific. And over here on the far right is the 500 millibar height anomalies for February 2021. Look at this now across the northeast Pacific, how anomalously above normal the heights were to the southwest of the Aleutian Islands, to the southeast of Japan, across that North Pacific area. And then we had below normal heights across the Northwest Territories up into much of Alaska. And we continue to see this rather unusual above normal heights across Greenland to Iceland, in that general area of the North Atlantic sector. Now, what happened with the other teleconnections during this moderate La Nina of 2020-21? What about the North Atlantic oscillation? Let's examine that. So in December of 2020, we had a sharply positive North Atlantic oscillation. So not much of anomalies as far as the 500 millibar heights go in December. But then we saw a negative phase of the NAO take over into January, early to mid-January, and then we saw another sharply negative NAO in late in the year of 2021. So to really summarize the NAO, it started off very positive, and then it dropped negative. We look at the Arctic oscillation, very similar. Started off in December very positive with the AO, which means my jet stream is pretty much going to be more west to east oriented. You're not really going to see deeper troughs dipping down into the middle latitudes when you have a positive AO. All the Arctic air is going to generally be locked up to the north across the Arctic. And then you have this drop off turn to a negative AO in January, and then it recovers again to positive. Look at what we got here though. I told you I was going to explain this. This difference in temperature anomalies between January of 21 and February of 2021. Some of you may remember this. It was a sharp, bitterly cold air mass that just dove straight south into Texas. I believe this was the time in February where Houston actually got measurable snowfall. Of course, it was a major issue down there on the Texas Gulf Coast because, let's face it, your power grid is not used to being this, you're not used to flipping the heat on very much down in Houston, okay? So it was a major taxing on the energy, the power grid down there, and things did not work out very well. So this is a case in February 2021 where we saw this. We saw that energy transferring down. The polar vortex was significantly weakened, and we saw this peach color. We saw a lot of downward propagating energy from the stratosphere down to the troposphere to the surface, and this resulted in some anomalous cold Arctic air moving from the Arctic all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Now, I remember being in southeastern Virginia in February 21. All the bitterly cold air generally remained to the west of the Appalachian Mountains. We were below normal across southeast Virginia, like by about 3 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit. And we had just along this leading edge of the Arctic air. Let me draw it out for you. I want to draw this out because I think it's very important. It's going to explain this next one. All right, so whenever you have a leading edge of Arctic air like this, and it's very sharp, major temperature contrast on both sides of this Arctic boundary, you're going to get waves of low pressure or these storm systems to develop and basically ride up this boundary. And let me tell you something. That's why we got such above normal precip right there in February 21. The storm track would form in the Gulf and go right up here, right over this area, and it dumped a lot of rain. It was a cold rain too, I will say. 40 to 41 degree highs at night, temperatures in the upper 30s, and it was one of those disgustingly cold rains, let me tell you. And it was a lot of rain. I'd have to go back to look at my records exactly how much, but it was a lot. All right, so let's move ahead now and look at the moderate La Niña snowfall, that moderate La Niña winter of 2020-21. Yes, we did get snowfall here, everybody, in southeast Virginia. There's the heart in the snow, and there is the date to prove it. January 28, 2021, Hampton Roads received this on the right-hand side, this snowfall. It was the only accumulating snow of the winter season. It occurred on 28th of January 2021, and we ended up getting 3 to 4 inches that fell with this particular snow. So we did get some snow that winter here in the Hampton Road cities of Virginia. Now let's go ahead and look ahead at the moderate La Niña of 21-22. Let's go to the next winter. Unfortunately, January was not available. January 2022 was not available in this case. I kept trying to pull it and I just couldn't get it from the PRISM database. But anyway, this is December of 2021. This is just unreal, isn't it? Now, this proves a point, doesn't it? Okay. What was this winter? It was a moderate La Niña in the 2020-21 winter. And look at over here on the left what December looked like. Look at that. The light blue coloring, Tennessee Valley to the Gulf Coast, southeast Virginia southward to Florida. Moderate La Niña, right? We should have the same exact pattern the next winter, correct? Wrong. This is December of 2021, this was the second La Niña of the 3 in a row. And look how above normal the temperatures were. Texas, 12 to 13 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Louisiana, 10 to 12 Fahrenheit above normal. Arkansas, averaging around 11 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Oklahoma, 10 to 11 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Southwest Missouri, you were as much as 12 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. And look at this extent. Look at the spatial coverage of this anomalously warm temperatures in December of 2021. And look up the eastern seaboard. 5 to 7 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit above normal over this whole large area. Are you kidding me? In December? Yes, in December. The only cool area in December 21 was across northern Montana, where temperatures were 4 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit below normal, slightly cooler than normal along the west coast. February of 2022 over here, above normal again, up and down the eastern seaboard, 2 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in February of 22. And look at Texas, what a turnaround. December, 2 months previous, 10 to 13 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. By the time you get to February, it's 6 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit below normal in Texas. It was below normal pretty much from Indiana westward, including northern Minnesota. You had a pretty cold month in February 2022. International Falls, Duluth, talking 8 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. But the eastern seaboard, warmer than normal. Let's look at the precip anomalies during the moderate La Nina of 21-22. Very dry across the mid-Atlantic, up the coast to New York City and Boston. Philadelphia is in there too. Washington, D.C., Baltimore, drier than normal month in December of 21. And another wild, just big area here of deep browns. Texas, eastern New Mexico, Oklahoma, Kansas, just really, really dry. And then things got wet in December 21 across California, Southern California into the central portions in Sierra Nevada. I imagine this was a lot of snowfall up there. And then above normal across northern Minnesota and along the northern tier. Over here in the middle, we show you January 22. These are the precip anomalies, brown, drier than normal. Look how things flipped in California from one month to the next. Above normal to below normal, pretty much the entire state of California in January of 22. And then drier than normal conditions continued for Texas that month. Drier than normal conditions across the Midwest, the UP of Michigan, lower Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, up into New England, drier than normal, but wetter than normal across the mid-Atlantic. Over here on the right, we show the precip anomalies for February 22. The western U.S. remains drier than normal. And then we also had drier than normal conditions across Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, southern Minnesota, Iowa, into southern Wisconsin. And then drier than normal conditions extended from Florida up the East Coast, up through the Virginia area, as well as parts of Delaware. Let's look at the 500 millibar height anomalies in the moderate La Nina winter of 21-22. December 21 on the left, we have higher than normal heights across the North Atlantic. We have higher than normal heights across the North Pacific, south of the Aleutian Islands. We have a little bit of troughing working its way in from Canada into the northeast New England area. And then in the middle here, we show 500 millibar height anomalies for January of 22, showing a bluer color showing up now across parts of Hudson Bay, Canada, and central Canada. We hang on to that above normal anomalous higher height anomaly across the North Pacific, just south of the Aleutian Islands. And then we also have milder than normal, I shouldn't say milder than normal conditions, but above normal heights across southeastern U.S. to mid-Atlantic, and also extending across to our neighbors over in Europe. And over here on the right, we see the height anomalies for February 22, showing troughing, below normal height anomalies by the blue coloring across Hudson Bay once more, and then this anomalous higher heights south of the Aleutian Islands across the Northeast Pacific. It isn't as strong or anomalous at this point. It kind of flattens out that ridge. And then we had higher than normal heights off the U.S. East Coast, as well as parts of the U.K. all the way down into parts of Western Europe. What were the other teleconnections looking like? What's about the NAO in the winter of 21-22? All right, so if we look at this, December of 21, we got off to a negative NAO by this blue dip. And then we see this red spike right after it. So starting off with a negative NAO, but then changing to a positive NAO. The AO, pretty much positive. There was this initial dip in December. That was it. It was briefly negative AO for a bit in late December, but then it climbed again. The NAO phase went back to positive for the months of January and February of 22. What about the polar vortex? What did it look like? Well, there wasn't a lot of energy dripping down from the stratosphere to the troposphere in this case. And so you had a relatively milder winter overall. And I mean, we looked at the anomalies here. Outside of Texas and the Southern Plains in February of 2022, this was a pretty mild December for sure. And I'm trying to remember what January looked like, but again, I don't have it, unfortunately. All right, so what happened in the winter of 21-22? Well, we had our heart in the snow here in January of 21, the first La Nina winter, moderate La Nina. Then we went to the second consecutive moderate La Nina. Oh, we got some more accumulating snow across Hampton Roads. In fact, we're going to double it up. We are going to double it up. Look at these streets covered with snow. Look at the date over here, 1/29/2022. This is our last measurable snow for Hampton Road cities, right here. There's the proof. Well, we had two accumulating events. In addition to 1/29/22, we also had 1/21/22. So we had two accumulating snowfall events in the Hampton Roads area. The first one was on the weekend of 21 January, and the second one was on basically 7 days later on the 28th of January, 2022. We totaled around 10 inches of snowfall from both storm systems. And again, this was the last accumulating snowfall for Hampton Roads. We have not seen any since this date, 1/29/2022. Finally, let's examine the weak La Nina winter of 22-23. This was the third consecutive La Nina winter. And let's look at the temperature anomalies. Over here on the upper left, we have December of 2022. Notice how it's cooler than normal. I mean, the winter got off to a cooler than normal start across the Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas. We're talking 2 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. Maine, on the other hand, you just keep getting warmer and warmer. I swear to goodness. You're above normal in December of 22 as well. 4 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit above normal for the mean temperature. Well below normal in the purple shading here across North Dakota into Montana, where temperature readings were on the order of 9 to 12 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. In the center here, middle center, top center, whatever you want to call it, January 2023, we had cooler than normal readings across the Intermountain West, and we had very mild temperatures across the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and look at New England. I mean, goodness. 10 to 12 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. PA, New York City, it's Albany, New York, oh my goodness, Boston, Hartford, Connecticut, Montpelier, all the way up to Maine. This is just insane. Look how mild it was east of the Rockies in January of 23. And over here on the far right, February of 23. Look at this. This is like a nation divided right here. I could draw a vertical line straight down from the center, basically divide the country into two halves, east and west. This is just insane. February 23, we're talking 7 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit above normal, all the way up and down the East Coast. The trough and the below normal readings were over the western U.S. Look at the greens out here, which indicates temperatures anywhere from 4 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. What about precip anomalies? In December of 2022, we saw slightly drier than normal conditions from the Carolina coast southward to southern Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. We saw drier than normal conditions across southwest Texas, South Texas. We saw above normal precip across central California, including you in San Francisco, extending our way towards Vegas and much of Nevada. We saw above normal precip across the Dakotas. We saw slightly above normal precip across parts of New England. And then over here in the middle is precip anomalies for January 23. We saw well below normal precip for Florida. Below normal precip across parts of northern Virginia into Maryland and Delmarva area, drier than normal across North Dakota into Montana, eastern Montana, as well as the Pacific Northwest. Wetter than normal conditions existed along the southern California coast, right along Interstate 5 northward there, as well as that would be the Sierra Nevada yet again getting hammered. This dark green color, well above normal. Well above normal across parts of Nevada for precip in January 23, as well as across Nebraska into parts of Minnesota. And actually above normal precip from Connecticut north to Maine. We haven't been seeing that much, have we? And then over here on the far right, precip anomalies for February of 23. Drier than normal conditions return to New England. We have wetter than normal conditions across parts of the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, and lower Michigan. We see drier than normal conditions along the Gulf Coast in general. In Florida, you're drier than normal again. And then along the Pacific Northwest area. And then these were the December 2022 to February 23. These were the 500 millibar height anomalies. The blue indicates the greatest departure from normal as far as the lowest height anomalies. This is going to be associated with where your trough set up. I could literally draw the pattern here for this winter. You know what it looked like? We had a huge ridge in this peach color, right? We had this big ridge, and then we had this trough. We had this trough right here, and then another ridge. I mean, look at this. When you're beneath this kind of ridge in the eastern U.S., you're going to have a mild winter. And then the colder air and the precip stayed all out here in the west for that winter, with that troughing. And then during that week, La Nina of 22-23, this is breaking it down to the Hampton Roads, Virginia cities again. This is the second least snowiest winter in 22-23. Let me see. Did I do that right? Yeah, I did. So the second least snowiest winter here, okay, was the winter of 22-23. We had a weak La Nina in place. All right, just a trace of snow. But you recall the previous two La Nina winters, we had 3 to 4 inches one winter, followed by 10 inches the next winter. So just because it's La Nina does not mean it can't snow. But this just goes to show you here, it was only a trace for measurable snow during the La Nina winter of 22-23 for Hampton Road cities. And notice this graphic here from the National Weather Service office in Wakefield. The least snowy winters appear to be increasing for Southeast Virginia. I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news if you like snow in the Hampton Roads area, but this is the trend right now, okay? If you look at the top 10 least snowy winter seasons, 06-07, you got 2018-19, you've got 22-23, and then you got 23-24, which it was this most recent winter, was 23-24. We only got a trace this last winter. We have back-to-back winters with just traces of snow. Now, what's our average here in the Hampton Road cities each winter for snow? It's generally around 6 inches. 6 inches is the average each winter here in the Hampton Roads area. All right, so now to end the presentation, let's take a look at the current ENSO forecast. Now, this is the NOAA forecast. This is the NOAA forecast here on the left. The blue vertical bars indicate La Nina conditions. Oh, by the way, the vertical axis here, this has your percent chance or probability of these conditions existing. And on this horizontal axis, we show the months. And they're divided up into months, 3-month periods. So if we look at SON, that stands for September, October, November. All right, so we see the blue bars indicating La Nina conditions. We have, we're looking at higher probability in this case. By November, December, January, over 80% probability. And then by December, January, February, we're down to maybe 76% probability. January, February, March, our La Nina probability is just over 60%. You will notice something interesting here, though. Look where this X is, right where I'm doing this X. You see the gray bar here? That represents ENSO neutral conditions. And by February, March, and April, as we head into early spring, we could be looking at ENSO neutral conditions. And those ENSO neutral conditions will continue into next summer per the latest forecast from NOAA, Climate Prediction Center. Now what happens here? So look over here on the right, we're showing model predictions of ENSO from August 2024, the IRI model. There is a new model out. I just did not put it in here, and I apologize for that. It just came out today on the 19th of September. But generally what we're looking at a weak La Nina developing for the upcoming winter. It's not going to be very strong, at least it doesn't appear that way. Here's the climate forecast system, the CFS forecast for the weak La Nina. This is showing you this dashed solid black line indicates the average of all the ensemble models. All right, this is the ensemble run from the CFS V2, version 2, showing the average of all the model runs getting down to about a minus 0.8 for the temperature anomaly in this region. So that's not quite going to get to that moderate category. It's going to stay in the weak category between minus 0.5 and minus 1 for the water temperatures in the Niña 3.4 region. And then over here on the right, I want you to pay attention to where this blue coloring is, right? So we have October, November, December is the upper left graphic here. This blue area I circled in those months, showing where the coldest water temperatures are going to be. And you notice it seems like the coldest water is going to start extending further westward out into the central equatorial Pacific. It just feels like it the way these charts look. At least that's the forecast from CFS. By the time we get to February, March, and April, this blue color is in the upper right. That's really fading out at that point. So, all right, that's all I got. This is the rest of the La Nina winters video that I promised, okay? A couple takeaways here. I want to just say this now. There are no two identical La Nina winters. There could be slight deviations from the previous La Nina winter. One thing I want to mention is if we're dealing with a weak La Nina, the tendency for the typical La Nina conditions to occur, it diminishes, that probability diminishes with a weaker state of the La Nina. The stronger the El Nino or La Nina, the greater the probability that you'll see the typical conditions of a La Nina winter. And one other thing I want to say to anybody watching in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area, this proves it right here, okay? You can get La Nina winters and still get snow, all right? You can still get it, and I proved it right here with these pictures, all right? So just because it's a La Nina winter doesn't necessarily mean there won't be any snow this winter. Of course, the way these temperatures have been warming during the winter, it's insane. But that's another video, that's another topic. I do have another video that I'm working on putting together now, and I'm going to go over the MJO, the Madame Julian oscillation in La Nina winters since 2010. So we're going to cover the same La Nina winters back to 2010. And I'm going to show you kind of like what the MJO looked like in those winters. So I'm working on finishing that up now. So hopefully I'll be able to get that out in the not too distant future. But that's all I got for now, everybody. Thank you so much for, when you give me these kind comments, I really appreciate it. In the comment section, it does take time to build this stuff. It takes research. I mean, when I put this stuff together, I'm trying to break it down in simplistic terms for everybody to understand. But not only that, but it takes me time to put this stuff together. So I appreciate the positive words of encouragement in the comments. I really do take the thank yous to heart when I see them. So thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. And that's all I got for now, everybody. Until next time, take care and God bless everyone.